Hi, Bobby Halton here with Trusted Voices and Chief Brunancini, the godfather of the fire service, and we're just talking about everything to do with the fire service. The Chief started his career back in 1958, still plugging away today, helping on numerous committees, helping the fire service, continue to evolve in new and exciting ways. So one of the things that I know you get hit with routinely, and I think everybody loves to hear from you from time to time, is what advice would you give to, and I want to break it into two groups of people. First, what advice would you give to young and aspiring officers, as you dub them, bosses? And I know you can have bosses at all ranks, but people who get that formal authority given to them by virtue of rank as bosses. What advice would you give to these up and coming young lieutenants and captains out there in the fire service?
One of them, and you and I have talked about this, and I think you had a frame of reference from your son, who is an accomplished aviator, is you got to learn your job. In other words, there's no substitute for experience, for competence. In other words, we do very practical service delivery kinds of things that require organizational skill, personal skill. In other words, all the different skill kinds of ways that contribute to doing it. In other words, you got to understand that. In other words, you got to get to be a journeyman in the process. You got to fly the airplane, or if not, it's going to kill you. Right. He said that. Yeah, it's a great way to say it too. Same way with us. If you can't figure out your job in an effective, safe way to do it, there's a pretty good chance you're going to get hurt, and there could be a chance you're going to kill yourself doing that. I think the other part, in other words, that's kind of the tactical, organizational service delivery part. I think the other part, and we've talked about it here a lot, is simply the human relations part of it. And you need to learn about humans in the process, what components they have mentally and psychologically and spiritually and cognitively and emotionally and socially. And I don't mean to make that real complicated. What makes humans tick in the process? I think, how do you motivate people? We've talked a lot about appreciation and gratitude and organizationally acknowledging when people do good work in the process. I think today, and again, kind of a current, very long overdue conversation and then discussion that leads to some kind of programming thing, is simply, what do you do when people are having problems? People who work for you are going to have problems. You hire these kids when they're 21, they're almost problem-free, other than they're just kids in the process. They get married, their folks get older, they have relationship difficulties, they work in places that aren't completely positive, they have kids, and that's the agony and ecstasy of getting to that stage of your life because you have kids. How do you somehow support them? Because you're their boss. In other words, you're their moral and spiritual leader for, in the fire service, a third of their lives in the process. We see the people in the fire station probably longer than any other group of people that you hang out with, including your family. Particularly looking at kind of the contemporary routine in families in the process. So you need to understand, I've said you ought to be a bartender, you ought to drive a cab, and you ought to work in some kind of a service that delivers some kind of support to poor people.
You almost say you'd be a pastor, a bartender, and a cab driver.
See, that's right, because you're going to learn the human condition. Right. And don't let the human condition surprise you or shock you or thinking, wow, I didn't get that. We're humans. Right. Humans come from the factory based on the day that we're made, and there's maybe 5 or 6 models of us. You need to figure out what's going on with people simply in their personal profile, and you got to fit into that, and you got to make it. You got to adapt that to the routine that we have to somehow be effective and safe in the process. But you got to understand humans. If you don't like humans, if you don't like folks, you probably ought to really question whether you ought to be in this business.
Yeah. Forest Service might be a better fit.
Yeah. Get the tower. The remote tower where you're all by yourself.
In Montana.
In Montana, yeah. I think it's 45 miles the other side of Missoula or somewhere.
That's it,
yeah. Just don't ride around here. We're sitting in the backyard. You're going to hear engine 30 and engine 930 going up and down the street here. This is a very, very busy. There's 2 engine companies in the local fire station. That's because the humans in this first new area have a lot of needs. And I'm a reflection of that. I've lived here 45 years.
You know, I had a great question that question reminded me to ask you. It was asked of me to ask of you at a command class I was giving, and an officer asked. He said, "How much of my vulnerability, when I'm going through something, should I share with my crews?" And I said, he was a very nice guy, and he said, "Can you be a little more open?" And he said, "Yeah, I went through a divorce." Or he's going through a divorce, or he was in the middle of it, some point in the divorce process.
Yeah.
And he said, "I'm edgy, and I'm a little short." And he goes, "Should I be telling my crews that, you know, that this is?" And I said, my advice to him was, be as honest as you and open as you can with them. I mean, you may have one of your crews might have some insight, might be able to help you. And he said, but he didn't want to appear weak. He didn't want to appear weak, and he didn't want people to think that his head wasn't in the game when he was at work. I don't know that you can, if you're getting divorced, and I've never been divorced, so I don't know what I'm talking about here. Yeah. But if you were going through some really emotional thing with your spouse, I don't know that you can compartmentalize yourself that way and still be effective.
One of the classes that we do A and P. And we talk about personal effectiveness, and we've kind of drilled down to where we're using body parts, which is interesting because it really creates a great discussion. So we present it, and then we go around the room and we say, what body part would you improve? A lot of people say their mouth, their ears. There's this big alpha guy sitting in the front of the room. I mean, this guy looks like he could eat nails and spit battleships. I mean, just the toughest big guy, maybe 45 years old. He says, heart. So I'm saying, huh? No, I didn't say it that way, but I'm wondering, heart? I said, say another word. That's interesting that you would say that. Tell us a little bit more about the reason that you would say that. He said, well, my analyst and I have had an extensive discussion about my emotional dynamics. And I'm thinking, and this is 30 firefighters, hairy-legged firefighters sitting in this room. And this guy is just talking as natural as he can be. It created the most amazing 45-minute discussion you could imagine. And I'm thinking, that is the most incongruous thing. Because I was going to say, when I said, he's going to say body. Because that's one of the, and going to say, and what I'm trying to do is
functional fitness.
I'm trying to do those, I'm doing CrossFit, and I'm trying to do those Zotman curls, with the kettlebells, you know. And he's saying, my heart. I'm thinking,
my level of interpersonal sensitivity.
He was the most influential person in that room for the next 2 days, including me. And I was the teacher, or whatever you want to call me in the process. He changed that class because he authorized everybody in that class to participate in that same way. And I'm thinking, wow, it's an amazing class because of him. And he was just as rugged as he appeared. I mean, he was not, he was a stand-up, I think he was a lieutenant, busy urban kind of guy in the process. I mean, he was not, I mean, he wasn't a hairdresser. I'm going to be stereotypical. He wasn't, he didn't run a flower shop on his days off. Yeah, he probably ran an excavating company, you know. Yeah, no, but it was.
He dug septic tanks
by
hand.
No, that's right. Yeah, no, he was a rugged guy, and I'm thinking, wow. So I think that's the answer to the question. What? Hey, you guys, I'm going through a divorce. It's screwed up, and if I'm yelling at you a little bit, let me apologize now. I love you guys. I don't mean to do that, but I want to kill her or him or whatever it is, isn't it?
Right.
What? Come on. That's the problem, isn't it? That there is an issue and you don't address it.
Oh, absolutely.
Now, can your troops help you as much as you can help them?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like help each other?
It's interesting, as you get older, you become more willing to accept people's help. At least I have. I mean,
Oh yeah, no, you can't. If it's we were laughing. If it's heavy, what do? You go get a kid. You get one of these guys. Hey, come here. Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of heavy stuff around here. I don't move any of it.
I have that boat anchor I call a book bag.
That's
and
right.
my computer in it, and I had 4 or 5 books in it the other day. And I'm getting on the airplane, and I went to lift it, and this young man jumps up and he goes, "Oh, I'll get that for you, sir." And he put it up there, and I just said, Thank you.
Thank you. Absolutely.
Plane landed, he got it back out, and I couldn't have been more grateful.
I've had little old ladies put my suitcase up, and I thank her. Yeah.
God bless you. Thank you. So
come on.
let's go to the other group. Young kid comes to you, he's 19, 20 years old, says, "Chief, I want to be a firefighter. What should I do?" What would you advise him?
Keep going to school. And when I say go to school, you need to be a student. You have got to adapt a lifestyle of a student. Part of that is going to school, but there's a lot of other things. There's curiosity, there's reading, there's writing, there's interaction, there's interaction with other people. You've got to refine your listening skills. You've got to never stop. In other words, there's no end to being a student. You have little graduation ceremonies, and that's good because it creates little benchmarks for you. But if we stop being students, the day you stop being a student is probably the day when you're starting to kill yourself in some way in the process.
And do you think it's important that they do fire science or education in general, or even?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
I agree. I think even trade school.
Trade school, anything. You can be a student, absolutely.
Yeah, be a student.
And you can go take social science, you can take fire science, and you can go to trade. You can learn how to weld. You can learn how to do a machine thing. Now, you look at the educational opportunities that you have sitting at your desk.
Right.
Right.
Well, someone asked me the other day who should come to FDIC. I said everybody.
Everybody, absolutely.
So they go, "What's your target audience?" The fire service. I mean, I think it's. I agree. It's a great answer. Keep going to school. Yeah.
But it's almost like with the officers thing. You got to understand the human condition. You got to understand a system. You're going into a system, and we've seen people in our careers that the hour and a half they were in that. In the fire department, the Albuquerque Fire Department, the Phoenix Fire Department, the Schlitz Fire Department, they figured out the fire department. They said, "Okay, I looked at this and I can figure it out." Oh. We've had guys in there 30 years and haven't figured the system out. You need to figure out that there's a system that has different elements. It's the way they interact with each other. There's an importance in it. There's some history. There's timing. There's all the dynamics of the organization. Figure it out. And then use it. And I mean that in a constructive way. Don't take advantage of it, but figure out how do you facilitate not only your own needs in that, but how do you help that system and what the system is directed to deliver service to, do that in a more effective, safer, happier kind of way. But it's all a system in the process. And I think that a lot of times what we're struggling with is you're trying to figure the system out. I mean, a lot of I've been going to FDIC since 1959. I go there and I learn more about systems because I get to interact with 35,000 other people for a week. What do you? She's 57-year wife in here. She says, "Are you going to go another year?" I say, "I'm going to go. I hope I go the next 20 years." She says, "What do you learn there?" I says, "I learn about systems." You've been working in the system 60 years. I said, I'm a sophomore. Why? Does it change?
It evolves constantly. Constantly.
In some ways, is it unrecognizable from year to year?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I know it.
Oh, absolutely. I tell people I had Dan Majikowski and Steve Kerber teaching a class 7 years ago, and you could have held it in a phone booth. Today,
now you couldn't get it in the...
Can't get them in. And I'll tell you the next thing. Right now, I've got a kid doing a class, the Illinois Peer Support Program kid. The kids, the young men, doing this class. Right now, 9 people signed up for it. In 5 years,
no, you can't. You won't.
We'll have to.
They'll be out in the hall.
Auditorium.
They'll be out in the hall.
That's right. We'll have 350 people in there, because the awareness level of it is doing this.
You would hope that for those Illinois guys, and I know them and love them just like you do, in 5 years you can't get in their room. I hope the boss behavior class that's next to them has that same evolution to say,
absolutely.
you got to go next door and learn about bosses. I don't mean to be preoccupied with bosses, but I
absolutely.
think they're that important to say, you got to figure out what is the care and feeding of these people so they don't blow their brains out. And forgive me for saying it that crudely. But just to say, you somehow have got to figure out the dynamics, the details, the routines that you have to go through to somehow help people get through the day in the process.
Well, I
I'm
think-
getting a divorce. And it's an ugly divorce.
There's a burden.
I mean,
There's
just use that as an example.
There's a level of burden or accountability or
See, that's right.
responsibility
Yeah, no.
that comes as you move through a system and you assume more control, responsibility, influence within that system. You have to prepare for that. I mean, when you come in at the bottom, you can observe the system, you can play in the system,
That's right.
you can be part of the system. As you inch your way up in that food chain of that system, you better be ready to play.
Are the people, places, and things in that system going to break down?
Oh, absolutely.
You have to engineer, manage.
And they're going to have conflicting goals sometimes. that you gotta balance.
Sometimes we'll do it. We do most of it to ourselves.
Right.
Do we have to engage in a recovery?
Absolutely.
If we can't recover, what happens to us?
We implode.
We implode. Absolutely.
absolutely.
And we need to clarify that more and more. And we do it with systems. I'm not a big system guy, honestly, but you got to figure that out in the process. And I think that's what we're all struggling to do. You know, I mean, yeah. But see, we need more Kerbers and Mazikowski. See, the Illinois guys are almost science-based guys. When you get what's
they
behind
are.
them is,
Oh, yeah,
they're mental health professionals.
They're working with that whole
that's
program is
see, that's
they
they
have-
ain't inventing that stuff.
right.
There's-
They got people like Elena in there
That's
embedded with
exactly-
them, so that they don't go off the rails with
Yeah.
something. And every now and then someone comes to you with something that's not peer support, that's professional help, and that's okay too. Because your peers will get you there and support you while you get that. And there's nothing wrong with that.
It could be that the situation that you described, those firefighters tell their boss, get in the car.
Yeah.
We're going to take you to talk to a guy.
Yeah,
We call him a paid friend,
that's right.
and he's got all his diplomas on the wall.
Right.
And he's going to help you because
And
we can't. You're a level above us, boss. But get in the car.
Because
When they tell you to get in the car, what should you do? Get in the car. Get in the car. When you get a wake-up call, get up.
right, self-awareness is the fundamental block of your personality, your character, what's important to you comes from what you're aware of.
That's right.
And it all stems from self-awareness, and
See,
that's the key.
can you learn to be more effectively aware?
Oh, absolutely. But we were
Absolutely.
talking about
See,
that.
that's right,
We've almost developed a culture that allows you to become unaware of yourself. You just said you have people who are sitting in movies, plays, and concerts on their cell phone,
right.
not experiencing the concert, but trying to share it. They're trying to be in 3 places at once, and as Kerouac said, then you're nowhere. You're either on the bus or you're off the bus or you're nowhere at all.